Welcome to the First to Last the Nerdom, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of film, fantasy, and all things nerdy. We discuss the first to last and everything in between in the Nerdom universe. This week, we're taking a dark, atmospheric journey into the 1984 horror fantasy film, The Company of Wolves. Directed by Neil Jordan, this film brings together fairy tale elements and werewolf mythology in a way that's haunting, strange, and undeniably memorable. Join us as we unravel its layers of symbolism, explore its stunning visual styles, and discuss its place in the realm of fantasy cinema. Whether it's your first time watching or your 10th, get ready to sink your teeth into the cinematic gem. Let's get started.
Easy to Lovecraft, they dish the facts. Lightsabers clash and case on their backs. Xenomorphs lurking, Gotham's dark alleys. With every episode, the fandom rallies. The first to last, the Nerdom with Mike and Tom. Dropping nerd knowledge like an atom bomb. Discussing the cosmic, the scary, the epic. Tune in, strap in, it's all real, authentic. Galaxies far, far, horrors, chilling lore. From Krypton to Hogwarts, always explore. Panels and pages, heroes and stages, worlds colliding, they know all the phases. Wicked X-Wings and Daleks that scream, phantom zones and vampire dreams. Multiverse open and ready to storm. Mike and Tom in the lab, setting the norm.
What a big podcast you have, Mike.
Yeah. Well, hey. Well, thank you. Well, why don't you just come on in and sit by the fire and make yourself comfortable, Tom? I'll make you some porridge.
Is that you, Granny?
Well, it's going to be Murder, She Wrote for sure.
Oh, zoinks.
Yeah, boy, what did you make me watch? This crazy zany thing, which I had no clue going into this week. Never heard of it. Never did anything with it before. It was very, very interesting. And I might even call it. It was way ahead of its time. And it was made in 84, 85, whatever it was. Of course, we're talking about The Company of Wolves, and dare I say it might be a tad bit of a feminist fever dream. Tom, what are your
could be. Yeah, we last week we talked about Heretic, which is an A24 film, and I was thinking if it was made today, it would probably fit right in with the A24.
Nobody would bat an eye if it would have come from the A24 stables. And of course, I'm sure we'll get into it here pretty quick. But first things first, we got to pay the bills, so to speak, or do the thing here. I'll let you do the honors here to take us off the top.
Yeah, we're the First to Last the Nerdom, or if you want to call us First Last Nerdom, as we've kind of shortened it down to. We like I said at the top of the thing, we're the first, the last, and everything in between in the Nerdom universe. We talk about horror, we talk about fantasy, we talk about sci-fi, comic books, anything that has a fandom to it. We like to kind of sink our teeth into. Last week we did Heretic, and then the week
fun.
before we covered Absolute DC's new line, Absolute, with Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman. And in the future, they're going to be doing not too distant future Flash, I think, and maybe a Green Lantern. So keep a lookout for that. And we also honored David Lynch with The Lost Highway. So that's just a few of the things that we've kind of discovered or discussed in the past. And then we also have some social media presence. I'm on Reddit under FirstLastNerdom, and I promote our stuff there wherever I can in any subreddit that will have me and not ban me. I'm also on X under FirstLastNerdom. Follow me there. I post whenever we have something new, and then if I find something out in the world that's kind of interesting. Last week I was what what's the YouTube suggested me Guns N' Roses if they were a 50s band, a band from the 50s with some kind of It's AI generated. I gotta say, even if AI just it ends the human race, it does do some funny things. So check that
Yeah,
out if you can.
absolutely. Yeah, that's a fun. Found a lot of fun conversations. I too also am available on X if you want to have a longer form conversation with me and Tom. We'd love to hear from you. Your opinions therein on what we covered. ApeIt_Ink. Also, similar to my name, ApeIt.Ink is just my publication, or I like to kind of shout from the rooftops sometimes, or put pen to paper and do some fun things. A little bit on the heavier side, but that's my little slice of the web for my edification and entertainment. And as you mentioned before, I did want to call attention to our last couple, the DC one, which you expertly plugged. Go check out wild, weird, wonderful ride on a great David Lynch movie that you can get caught on real quick, and then kind of go from there. But I definitely wanted to promote that. Also, this movie that we saw, Company of Wolves, is available pretty much wherever you want to show up for a free, as long as you create an
Yeah,
account. It's on Plex, it's on Tubi, Pluto, or I might.
Canopy.
Yeah,
Hmm.
Canopy. Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
Canopy,
it really
and I
is
saw it
a
was also on AMC and Shutter as
plus.
well.
Yes, I did see that too as well. Yeah, yeah, but it's out there, and of course, if you want to rent it, why would you? But it's out there. It's wide available. I'm so glad that you found this one, Tom. And I
Hmm.
believe this one came up from. This is one of your finds for physical media. Would that be a
Yep.
correct statement, sir?
Yeah, if you wanted to full screen this for a second,
Oh
you
yeah,
could
yeah. Let
take a
me
look. The art
let me
and it's on the
pull in
cover is
here.
pretty cool.
That is. Oh, is it like
As
it's
you can
kind
see.
of 3D?
No, it looks that way, but no, it's just a
Okay.
slipcase.
Okay, cool.
And
That's
I
just
know there's
cool.
that's the thing about physical media and these the collectors love the slipcase. So and that they're usually in limited numbers.
Yeah.
So if you're into this, this comes out from Shout Factory, their Scream Factory line, that puts out their horror stuff. It's got like couple of commentary tracks on it. One with Neil Jordan, and then there's a couple of interviews on it. So it's kind of skimmed. It's kind of doesn't have as much extras as some other things do have, but this pretty meaty commentary with Neil Jordan. So definitely check that out. But yeah, it's a 4K. They also have a Blu-ray release of it. But yeah, I first discovered it. Well, one of my buddies in college, it was one of his big movies,
Okay.
and I know I think it took me a little while to track it down to watch it, but yeah, so when I noticed it was out on 4K, I was like, okay, yeah, I might as well. I should probably pick it up. It's one of those kind of hidden gems from the 80s. 80s is like an endless wealth of you think you've maybe plumbed the depths of everything that the 80s has to offer, and then
Right.
something like this kind of bubbles up to the surface. You go, oh yeah, this little weird little gem is here.
Yeah. No. It starts off right away. And you are treated to a lot of the great. I mean, there's just so many ways to back into this or drive into this one. Whether it's the practical effects, or the acting, or the many layers. I'm sure we're going to get into that. I kind of tease a little bit. But
Yeah, this
what?
is I was going to say this is based on the short story from Angela Carter.
Mhm.
She's a feminist magical realism
Yeah.
writer. She wrote a book called or a collection of short stories called The Bloody Chamber, which is kind of reimagining different Grimm's fairy tales. And
Hmm.
this was one of them. She also wrote it as a radio play, and she talked to Neil Jordan saying, "Hey, this could probably be a movie." And Neil said, "Yeah, although it's a little short, let's workshop it and do it as a proper screenplay, and they worked it out, and so it's almost like a kind of an anthology
Okay.
story. There's several different little stories within it, with kind of a broader story, uh, and also it's kind of bookended with it's sort of like a fever dream from this young girl, kind of up in her upstairs bedroom,
Right.
maybe trapped in a weird dream, or or she's just dreaming. It's never really kind of explained. A lot of the stuff isn't really explained.
No,
But yeah, that's sort of the charm of this movie.
well, this starts off with it doesn't beat you over the head with it. It has a very subtle point here, and it goes hard for some there. But yeah, you have this young woman that is kid, still kind of a kid, still in between. That's kind of the metaphor. There's metaphors that
Yeah.
abound with this one, but it's
Hmm.
fever dream. It's transitioning from one period from one part of life to another. And,
Hmm.
not to get too crazy, but just to complete the thought, like you even have the wolves themselves kind of crash through her room and do that. So a lot of different layering in here, but it just is so fascinating too. How you can tell that the way that this was written, there's a very good subversive layer that goes through right off the bat that is kind of counter. Like normally you would in a horror or fairy tale. I don't know quite. Well, again, a great genre bending. Definitely horror for sure.
Hmm.
But there where you're melding into a new area. So it's just kind of it's just very interesting how they go about that with the subversive nature and Angela Carter. This makes me actually want to go back and read some of her works because um,
It.
even though it's fairy tale esque like you mentioned the Grimm's it very much is on the head for Little Red Riding
Hmm.
Hood. There's
Hmm.
no shortage of symbolism in this whole thing.
Yep.
That
Yep.
we'll get into. Why the color
Yeah.
red, which also is
Hmm.
this, it's very uniquely displayed when you were introduced to this dream, this starting sequence.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever got around to reading Angela Carter's stuff. She might have had like a short story in one of my anthologies I've read,
Hmm.
but she definitely influenced a lot of the writers that I did read, because I've seen her name over and over as I've gone through my reading experience, and in fact, she definitely influenced Neil Gaiman, which we talked about a few episodes
We did.
before with his
We caught
controversy
up on.
in our absolute DC
He's
episode.
going.
But
He's
he's
going through the
done
valley
quite a
phase
few.
of his career right now.
Yeah, yeah, not so great, but he has done sort of his kind of reimagining of different fairy tales as well.
Hmm.
So she's had a definite impact, and especially on feminist literature as well. I'm sure there's a lot of writers since she has come out, has kind of had their kind of take on fairy tales as well. It's a kind of an endless source, because those fairy tales got to get to the primal nature of different things, and you could use them and kind of twist them, or kind of reshape them to kind of tell whatever tale that you are interested in telling. And like you said, this is sort of like a girl kind of blossoming into womanhood, and having all the different elements of adults kind of telling her how to follow the path of life.
Well, right,
And
right.
you know as one tends to do, they see the edges of the path, and want to venture off, maybe kind of try some different things,
Well,
and kind of explores the dangers of that as well, and
what I
the
the,
wonders.
yeah, I wouldn't say they quite like break the fourth wall exactly per se, but you
Hmm.
definitely kind of know that you're kind of looking in on this thing, that's taking place, and there's a lot of different interwoven stories that are there, but in each one of those, as the tale progresses, because it really is a tale, you
Hmm.
have the that part. I just lost my train of thought. Excuse me. But
No worries.
it goes back to the metaphor. The bluntness, right? The bluntness that you
Mhm.
see. They don't waste any time getting to the thing. And one of the things I was really psyched about was this is an unflinching look at a like how like people were just a lot more blunt back in the day. Not talking about the 80s. I'm talking about like back when life was really hard. And what
Yeah.
people said what they meant and they meant what they said. And you get that in ebbs and flows here with, like where it's a period piece here a little bit. It's it kind of flashes back and forth, but for the most part, it's you're set in an alter world of fairy tale land, I guess. I don't know how to put it, but
Mhm.
not in a
Yep.
warm fuzzy kind of feeling. Like there is nothing held back from
Right.
this,
Yeah.
which I
Yeah. It's
love. And
yeah,
the what I love, I was going to say real quick, and I'll hand it back to you.
mhm.
The practical effects right off the bat, they're blunt, they're direct. It's just like the storytelling. Anyway, I just wanted to get that out there.
Oh yeah, no worries. Yeah, the original Grimm fairy tales were pretty dark.
Yeah.
The bloody and yeah, just but there was kind of tales to warn children of the dangers of the world. I
Hmm.
think in the original Red Riding story, that the wolf eats Little Red Riding Hood, and she kind of rips her way out of his stomach to
Hmm.
be saved. So yeah, they're a lot more gory, and and this movie kind of reflects that. And we're gonna make the
Cracked
ceremonial
up.
breaking of the boomer juice, and but yeah, so yeah, the movie was only the budget was only $2 million,
That's
which
right.
they really made everything the use of all the money. In fact, the whole forest, everything was done on stage. Nothing
Hmm.
was filmed out. Well, I think there's a couple of scenes at the very beginning outside the dream in the real world, where it's kind of outside, but everything else is done on the studio, especially the fantasy forest. And they made all the trees. And Neil Jordan said there was only 12
Hmm.
trees, but other people say there was like 20. But all those trees were made, and they had to reposition them to make them look like they're in different places. But for only 12 or 20 trees, it looks like a full forest. And like I said, they really got their money's worth out of everything. The guy who sculpted and did all the trees,
Was that
he
first?
went on to I
Anthony
forget his
Anthony
uh
Forced first.
yeah,
Excuse me.
he was the production
FURST.
designer. Uh, and there was the one guy underneath him that actually did the trees,
Oh,
and
okay.
he went on to do the Yoda's house in Empire, his little Dagobah little home.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
But yeah.
He also did. He also went on later to do Tim Burton's Gotham City. He did the Gotham City there too.
Mhm.
That the entire force was constructed, like you were saying, on the soundstage, and those
Yeah.
giant toadstools, the twisted tree, like all of it, all of it. It was very, very again. Not really cinematic, I would say.
Mhm.
I like to have like those big wide shots and the kind of that world building that you get used to.
Mhm.
It's just not available in this world. They did very
Mhm.
great panning and cropping or whatever, but it's just
Mhm.
not quite there for that. But for what
Mhm.
you do get, it is very detailed, and it welcomes you in. Like it has a level of quality it probably shouldn't have by all rights, but it does.
Mhm.
Anyway,
Yeah.
but yeah, that was
Yeah,
very
and
very cool that Anthony. I just want to give
yeah.
make sure we give credit where due because we don't really get too deep into these things. But anyway, it's just very cool. But I guess he did Full
Yeah.
Metal Jacket too. Huh?
Yeah, and actually Kubrick actually hired him for a Full Metal
It's a great movie.
jacket. because of this movie. He saw this movie and was like, "Hey, I need you for Full Metal Jacket." And so yeah, and he's yeah, a lot of great talent in this movie.
Okay.
Neil Jordan, and Angela Carter to start with. Yeah, Jordan, he wanted to frame it as a child's dream because he wanted to really put in those kind of
Mm,
surreal, kind of weird elements
right.
into the movie, where Angela was more into like symbolism and things having meaning,
Right.
whereas he also wanted to throw in stuff that was just weird, didn't really have a meaning, but would kind of create and add to the world. One of the things he added was there's at one point. Um, Rosaline climbs up a tree, and
Hmm.
these eggs crack open, and there's these little stone angels in there, and that was one of his ideas. He goes, "Okay, we have like little dolls that kind of pop out." But yeah, he just
Well,
adds this kind of bizarre nature to this thing.
well, it kind of adds to the Russian doll kind of narrative that you get. A dream within a story within a dream. It's very
Yep.
Inception, very pre. Of course, you aren't tracking. You have to be part of the whole thing. But I was also wanted to touch on too. This was going to be a little bit more heavy and more adult oriented in certain situations as the story progresses. But Sarah Patterson, which we have yet to talk about, she was
Mhm.
12, never had acted before ever, right off the street practically, and she did a fantastic job.
Yeah.
And I know we both kind of banter back and forth about not every child actor is the best, and when it doesn't work, it sticks out like a sore thumb. Not the case here. But they had to
No, no,
tailor some of the
absolutely not.
story to her age to preserve kind of that innocence. But
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, they were shooting for a girl that was 16, and I think Jordan would have been happy with someone older, but because yeah, he was. They did have sort of kind of sexual themes that were
right,
kind of more overt in the version that they were
they,
going to shoot, but then they
they
found
dialed it.
her, and
Yeah,
she was perfect. Actually, yeah, she's one of those rare. Uh, um, People that a child that does an amazing job. I was shocked. I learned that she was 12 after watching the movie, and yeah, absolutely shocked. I mean, her presence is just kind of it shows older, but yeah, it's she did a fantastic job, and like
right.
she was born for the role. Neil said that yeah, he usually when he casts child actors, he goes for people that haven't been trained to
Hmm.
act. He goes because yeah, usually they've learned all the bad ways of acting by the time they've gone through acting school or whatever. So he wants some amateur that he could kind of show the ropes to. But yeah, yes, Sarah Patterson, fantastic. Actually, the a lot of great actors. Angela Lansbury, of course,
Right.
she was. This is right before she started her role as uh, I forget her character name, but in Murder She Wrote.
Right. Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
She is Granny. She delivers. Again, she gives a great subversive plot performance. That like her. She said something. I wrote it down. It was never trust a man whose eyebrows meet.
Yeah.
It's got enough of campiness and gravitas, and of course you see her and it's instantly warming, even though that's not what they were going for. The warming part there is just because it's Angela Lansbury, we grew up with, and
Mhm.
that was I didn't even know she was in this, and when I saw her I was like, oh, it's kind of like coming home a little bit. So it adds to the depth of course she was always good in everything she did.
Yep.
But anyway, it
Mhm.
just adds to the
Yeah.
ambiance of all of the performers. And she's
Yeah.
blunt, direct. That's what I was kind of pointing out a little bit earlier.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Jordan said that she had that charm, but also he felt like she had a little bit of sinister edge to her as well.
Sure.
You never
Yeah.
know quite what Granny has in store. But yeah,
There's
you
an
can
edge
kind of
there
see
too.
that in how
Yeah.
they light her, and how she kind of she has that kind of creepy smile at times. But
Well,
also David Warner was
oh,
was great in this too, although he didn't
you're
do a
right.
whole lot in
He
this.
He was the
But
dad, right?
you'll remember him with our podcast for Time Bandits. He was
That's
the
right.
evil
That's true. Yeah.
guy from that.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say about Angela Lansbury.
Mhm.
She in a way, she's a very strong figure. So if after you see the movie, you kind of equate their lives that are lived in this very brutal, short-lived world, and there are certain kind of rules that go with it. Of course, they're kind of amped up a little bit because, again, kind of some of the normal things aren't there, but there's definitely a transition happening, and it's kind of like, here are the rules of the road that you need to be aware of. And if you think about it, and she very much admires her grandma, and she's very important to her. At a very least, she takes her very seriously and treats her with great respect,
Mhm.
by and large, and that's for a reason, because of the other people, the people that are part of this world that are just very well, they're werewolves. I mean, that's kind of the point of, you're already on the edge, but she helps shepherd her from one side to another in a way, and that touches on these concepts that are not normally grappled with even today. People lose their mind when they tackle certain aspects of taboo ish, type thing. Not saying anything untoward, just subject matter, and you don't really often get a storyline that is on the backbone of a young woman's journey through, from adolescence, through into adolescence. But anyway, masterfully handled, and it's just so light touch. I couldn't imagine how much more they would be allowed to go in. But it was still the '80s. But anyway, I'll
Yeah.
park it there. But yeah, you mentioned David Warner as the dad, right?
Mhm.
He is Stephen Ray's transformation to the scene that I think really grabbed me, to leading up
Yeah.
to there.
Yeah, there's some great Chris Tucker, Christopher Tucker, he did the special effects makeup. And yeah, they he was coming off of Elephant Man, and they
Oh,
approached
that's right.
him. And the big buzz at the time was American Werewolf in London, and they were kind of hoping to do something similar to that with their wolves in this. And Chris said, "Oh, well, I'll blow blow that out of the water.
That's
I'll
true.
do a great job." And
Right.
so they go, "Okay, well, let's do it." So yeah, there's some amazing effects going on in this, and he later went on to do Dune as well, the effects in Dune. But yeah, he's the transformation of Stephen Ray is kind of a horrific, and he's like ripping his skin off, and it kind
I
of reminded me of I would have to think it kind of influenced the design and of Frank and Hellraiser, which hopefully we'll do that in the future here. But
oh
but
man,
yeah, it's
yeah.
very, very, if you're wondering if this is a horror movie or not, yeah, that scene kind of that's more intense
It's
than a lot of
crazy.
horror movies actually get to.
Well, I didn't know. I was like, it takes so long, in a good way.
Mhm.
I was like, is this a is this, where's the werewolf part? Because you see this human like practically deboning himself. It's like, what the
Yeah.
hell? But it works very well, and you're treated to a very gross, but very practical effect. See, the great talent all around. That really pulled me into the story right away. I would say you kind of go from this kind of, oh, there's a cottage and some things going on, and into well, aside from understanding that this is a dream, or you're there and then you're off in a dreamland or whatever in this world, and you go from there. But perfectly done, as it went. You said
Yeah,
it was only 2 million or so or whatever, for the budget too. So
yeah,
they
the
really
budget
had
was
to.
2 million.
Yeah, that's
And
crazy.
yeah, and I think when it originally came out, it made 4 million, so it kind of doubled its. So it did
Made money.
uh did pretty well. Yeah, when it first came out, I wasn't aware of the movie, so
Mm,
I think it was kind of in America it was kind of done more as a kind of a art house kind of movie.
mm,
It wasn't one of those they pushed it as a big blockbuster. However, Neil Jordan, he said at the time a lot of filmmakers in his circle were like, thinking, why can't we get like a big budget, to make these, you know, big movies like Star Wars or whatnot.
mm,
And Neil thought, well, what if I shot for the fences and tried to do something that should have a big budget but doesn't, and what can I do to make a have a bigger story than what I'm expected to do. And so this is sort of his attempt at this, and I think he was really successful, because I think, especially um with such a creative vision and love, the both him and Angela, they said that they got along really well.
mm,
And yeah, they had kind of that a few week writing session where they were writing the script. And um he recalls them just kind of giggling with excitement about the different things that they were suggesting, because they would kind of about what they wanted in the story at night, and then
mm,
when they get together in during the day to actually write it out, they were very excited, about what each of them had come up with as far as ideas. And in fact, they wanted to do another movie together, but various factors, and also she became ill. They were thinking about adapting Vampirella of all things. I would have loved
mm.
to seen their version of Vampirella together. But yeah, their working relationship here really kind of shines through in this movie, and is sort of like it really kind of inspires. I think everything from the actors to the production to everything. It just all works together. There's not anything I saw in this movie that you know felt or looked out of place.
No, no. Well, and it is such a different. It's a more brutal, realistic take on the fairy tales. It's much more in line with that darker kind of. There is a morality here. There are clear consequences for actions. And I
Hmm.
mentioned the subversion part before because you're used to seeing things in a certain kind of a patriarchal kind of. I hate to be the art house nerd here, but but it is true. But this does it from a different way, and it works like you were saying. It works very well, perfectly
Hmm.
well. And I
Hmm.
don't understand. This is why this kind of movie, which absolutely would have raised eyebrows in the '90s or the 2000s or even today, if you had
Hmm.
certain names attached to it, it might ring some alarm bells and be called a certain kind of one thing or another. But it's not that because it has such quality. So you can tell allegories in stories, in stories, in story. Like these layered approaches to things very clearly, and the audience will get it, or they'll take away their own thing. But you don't have to beat somebody over the head with. It just it makes me sad just a little bit, because you would think 2025, and we have some films like that, but not quite like this. So
Yeah.
it definitely was a place where lightning struck. It sucks that I guess it just didn't catch fire, but it no doubt has a following, for sure. Obviously,
Yeah.
you found it, years later,
Yeah.
enough to buy the physical
Yeah.
media. Not you're not the only one, which is the beautiful thing here.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, there's a little interview with the producer Chris Brown, and he talked about how his years later, his wife, who's Italian, was in Italy and spoke to Dario Argento and
Mm.
mentioned that, no, yeah, my husband's a producer. And Dario goes, oh, what movies did he work on? And she said, The Company of Wolves. And he goes, oh, that's my favorite. Of
That's
course,
awesome.
I'm sure he would say that for her, but yeah, it is a quality movie. And yeah, like I said, it's a standout for horror icons like Dario Argento, which we've talked about here on the podcast. But yeah, it's very nuanced movie. I think fairy tales are a perfect way to tell stories that are maybe political or feminist. You know, a lot of times when you say feminist, people's brains kind of shut down and like, no, I don't want to. Let's
Well,
not go there.
well,
But this is sort of like a movie that really kind of digs into those thoughts, and I, you know, this is one of those movies where I thought, you know, we would probably benefit maybe from a female co-host here to kind of give her perspective on it,
sure, right,
but this is such a rich universal movie. Even though it has a feminist viewpoint to it, it's told in a way that is inviting to the audience, and you don't have to have a certain perspective on things. It just kind of tells its story without, you know, forcing you, or it's not like a lecture. It's not like you know, you have
mm-mm,
to
no,
believe this.
no,
It's just telling you a
no,
story, and you can enjoy it
yeah,
for what it is. And you could dig in as deep as you want.
right.
There's definitely stuff there to kind of look at and kind
Oh,
of think about, and
right.
you know, take a lesson from, or maybe some information from.
I,
But if you're just interested in a weird kind of werewolf story, you've got that
right.
too.
Well, and when I say, I should clarify, I think we very rarely ever get political, and we really are not getting political right now. We're just discussing the intricacies of the story and what we both pulled out of this thing, and it's very strong there with Carter with her writing. That she doesn't get boxed in, because it's very easy to fuck up a fairy tale redo you know, kind of thing.
Mhm,
But the other side of that coin, when I say feminist, I mean back back when, you know, hey, you would walk into the office and be like, all right, hey sweetheart, go get me my coffee and here's my coat.
mhm,
You know, I'm talking about like that Mad Men kind of that
mhm,
clear boundary like that, where feminism back then meant um it just meant equality. It just meant that women were equal to men in other aspects. And this perfectly displays that, with, again, without beating you over the head. It is just a
mhm,
classic. It is very, it shows that everybody, the other thing I liked about this too was very balanced in some regards too, because everything happened to everybody, right? So, it wasn't just like one side would get hit over the head, or one side would be diminished to be loping, brainless, dead, you know, archetypes of a male character or a female character for that matter. You had
mhm,
very complex, you know, where everybody took a turn. I like to call it the wheel, right? So sometimes you're on top of the wheel and you're driving, and sometimes the wheel is running you over. And that this did not shy from that. It showed a viewpoint of like what happens with it also was a very human story too, from like just being mean or being cruel, from certain aspects of it. Like their cruelty there is intricately woven in the thing, and they're not afraid to show it. That's the beautiful part of this thing. Again, it goes back to the story. I don't know. What did you think? How do you think this would play? Well, that's a question for another time. I'm not going to waste your time with that one. But anyway, I just want to keep it focused on this. But again, give credit. This makes me want to go read her stories, because there's obviously substantial depth there. Like, and it's not
yeah.
afraid to do it. And whenever you can get that quality, why they're well, I'm glad they don't. I hope they never remake this, because it would absolutely run it. Like, yeah, you would have to
Yeah,
have the
yeah.
right people.
I can't imagine what they would do with it.
Anyway,
And
sorry.
then I
I,
like you've got Terrence Stamp on the screen. He plays the
right.
devil in this. Andy Warhol
That's,
actually almost
oh,
was the
that's
devil
right.
in this.
No way.
But yeah,
Really?
it's there was an assassination attempt on him, and he was very reluctant to leave
Oh,
New
right,
York,
right. Yeah.
and he couldn't go to London where they were filming this, so they had to recast as Terrence Stamp, and Terrence Stamp said that he would do it, but Neil Jordan would have to buy him a suit. And so so Neil Jordan bought him that suit, and he was very tickled with getting that suit.
That's
That
funny.
he was able to get a suit out of him for the movie. But yeah, but yeah, there's like weird little elements of this, like this see car shows up into this fairy tale with the devil, and but yeah, there's
He was uncredited with this too, wasn't he?
right, yep,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
hmm
Yeah. Yeah.
sure was.
Yeah.
Sure was. Yeah, and that little skull that he holds in the scene, it's a real actual pygmy skull
Hmm.
that that they had located. So yeah,
That is funny.
that was but
Yeah.
yeah,
No.
there's
Perfectly done. Perfectly done.
yeah, and that's you would a lot of times with reimagining a fairy tale, a lot of times there's you tend to want to make it a parody, or have a lot of humor in it,
Yeah.
and there's humor in this movie.
A little bit.
Angela Carter has was able to put humor in it, but it's not cheap. It's baked into the story. It doesn't cheapen the story. This isn't a parody, even in fact. The classic lines that we're having fun with at the beginning of the podcast. What big eyes you have. There's a scene towards the end, where kind of everything culminates and tells the Red Riding Hood story. It's not played for laughs. It's actually a very intense kind of monologue that the I guess it's not quite a monologue. It's sort of like a conversation that he has, the wolf with the Red Riding Hood, Rosaline in the story.
Hmm.
They're back and forth. Those lines are intertwined within what was written by Angela Carter, and it just kind of flows and makes sense for the story. And like I said, it doesn't play for laughs. It makes it kind of amplifies, and kind of it's there's not like those member berries that a lot of movies have now. It just works. It works.
Well, I was going to say too. They, you mentioned Interview with the Vampire. I believe that they were going to do. They had they wanted to do far more than what they wanted to, than what they could or were allowed to do. But one of the things that they did, like I think there was going to be a wax pool, like a wax floor, like into a pool. But I think the budget, it wasn't going to happen. But Jordan, I think later on reused that in Interview with the Vampire, as a thing. But like it's just kind of cool to kind of see that interconnectivity with other films, like where you see anyway this dumb dumb weird thing. But and I
Oh
think
yeah.
oh, go ahead.
Uh, no, yeah, Neil Jordan, great director. He went on to do Interview with the Vampire, of course, The Crane Game.
I mean, that's
Butch,
classic.
the Butcher Boy is one of my favorites of his,
I
which
have not
maybe
seen that.
we can talk
Yeah.
about later. It's one of his littler known movies. I've read both the book that it's based off of and seen the movie. Both great things.
Well, kind of pulling it back to center, I can see why some people consider this a better, almost perfect werewolf movie in some aspects, because that's no doubt because well, I mean with Neil Jordan he did Interview with the Vampire. That literally was the defining definition of what a vampire archetype was or whatever. And we and to kind of pull it back not too far ago, we watched Nosferatu, which is another classic thing when you think of it's just cool in general. I just want to say, but I
yeah,
understand now like why people think that this would be they never mind, not that there's anything wrong with Teen Wolf or a little bit more campy side or a more poppy
mhm.
side or America Werewolf in London or whatever, but you still have this. I can understand why people consider this the definitive werewolf movie. It is perfect, and it plays with that transition of becoming a wolf,
Yeah, yeah,
perfectly,
and it's
perfectly.
yeah, it's fun to see, with the Interview with the Vampire. These, classic. horror tropes with the werewolves and vampires. Yeah, and with Nosferatu coming out, it seems like the younger generation are getting into vampires again and getting into kind of the gothic kind of gothic look and feel of things, and that's exciting. And I was never really a big werewolf guy. I know Wolfman came out recently, a new movie about the Wolfman, which I wasn't really excited about. Like I said, I'm not a huge werewolf guy. I like weird werewolf stories, and this is one of those stories. I like because your basic werewolf story, there's not a whole lot to it. Guy goes crazy at the full moon. I like something a little bit more deeper and tells a better story. And we have a planned double feature of werewolves. We got the Company of Wolves here, and we're
Mhm.
going to follow up next week with Brotherhood of the Wolf, another interesting werewolf kind of take. But this, like I said, this has all the little ingredients that I need for kind of a weird kind of fantastical story. I love horror, I love fantasy, and this is the perfect blend of
It
the
is.
two. It just it's just like I said, it works. It kind of reminded me a little bit at times of Labyrinth, I guess because it's
Oh
a
yeah, that's
a
true. Yeah,
young girl becoming
Pan's
becoming a
Labyrinth.
woman.
Yeah.
And Labyrinth has more of a kind of a playful nature to it, but
Right.
it has
A
kind
little
of a
more.
darker element to it as well. But yeah, this kind of if you were wanting to do kind of a interesting fantasy double feature, this would work well with Labyrinth.
I would agree wholeheartedly with that. And I think I have this is the werewolf thing. I think we'll explore in an upcoming one after we do the Brotherhood. There is it just kind of jogged my memory of a really good werewolf movie that I consider a quintessential one that I absolutely love. As a nerd,
All right.
we'll get into that a little bit later on. But that's off screen. But I wanted to say, you know, they did this without CGI, and they did it in a very tight timeline, very tight budget. I don't think that you could do this today the way things are today. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is a upcoming YouTube videographer, film, nerd. We've certainly kind of entertained that and blurred the lines with some different things that we've covered in the past. But I was going to say, actually, how was this taken by the critics back in the day? I realize we haven't talked about that, because it seemed
Oh,
like it got a little bit of a more of. It didn't seem to get its fair vetting in some quarters. What about you? You have any research for that?
oh well, yeah, actually, it did quite well with the critics. Roger Ebert actually gave it a great review,
Right.
and is actually quoted on the back here. I'll read it. A gloomy, fantastical universe filled with gnarled trees, wicked thorn bushes, clammy mist, torturous paths. The movie has an uncanny, hypnotic force. Roger Ebert, which Roger Ebert not always really big on fantasy and
That's
horror
true.
things, but I think it has I think with its literature kind of backing with Angela Carter, it was kind of already had critics kind of enamored with it, so maybe they were more receptive to this movie.
Hmm.
But yeah, it did quite well, and like I said, it kind of played more as a kind of an art house kind of movie. It
True.
wasn't didn't have like you know blockbuster action
Right.
kind of vibes to it. So yeah, you could tell it was striving for something more than just telling a cheap werewolf story.
No, absolutely. It did very well. And like you mentioned, Pan's Labyrinth, and it was way
Mhm.
ahead of its time. I could even see like where there'd be DNA of the witch too, and maybe Raw. I don't know. That might be a little bit more of a stretch, but very. They pushed boundaries, and they knew how to tell a story by pushing those boundaries, and invite everybody in to watch to be part of that that process, that the story, which is again, I can't you can't say this enough about modern. That's severely lacking in modern
Yep.
modern.
Oh, and there was a sense of danger even on the set. A lot of they had some wolves on there. Of course, wolves are untamed animals. You can tame them to a certain extent, but they are still wild animals. A lot of them were played by Belgian shepherd dogs that were kind of painted up to kind of look like wolves. But there were some actual wolves on the set, and actually at the end of the movie, there's a scene where Sarah Patterson does a really close scene with a wolf and gets her face really close to one. And the trainers for the wolves were like, you don't want to really get close to these wolves, because if they're spooked and you're close to them, they're going to attack. So they actually had during that scene a sniper on the set with a gun with a loaded round, not tranquilizer, with a
Wow.
loaded round. To if something happened to her, they would plug the wolf. But Chris Chris Brown, who was the producer, they had told the trainers had told him on that. So he wasn't there on the set while they were filming that, and then at the beginning of the shoot, and then when he walked in on the that set, and he just kind of like, oh god,
That's
hopefully
funny.
this turns out well. But but yeah, that kind of tells you how how fearless Sarah Patterson was, or maybe she didn't realize
Right.
what danger she was actually in with being so close to the wolf. But the movie's better for it. I mean, that's a memorable, classic, wonderful scene at the end there. Yeah, and we're kind of probably getting closer to the end here. We may be getting a little bit more into spoilers. But yeah, Daniel
Yeah.
Dax, she's a kind of a punk musician.
Right. Right. Right.
She got there's a little story that's told towards the end, told by Rosaline's character about this wolf girl. And Neil Jordan, that's not in the original script. Neil Jordan added that because he felt like there needed one more kind of a story from her to kind of just
Extra.
sort of yeah, kind of explore her becoming a woman.
Right.
um but yeah, it's one of the producers had been at a concert that Daniel Dax was performing at, and she had such a unique look, um facially interesting look, and the way she kind of performed. He thought, yeah, she would be perfect for the wolf girl, and they brought her in and were kind of overwhelmed with her performance. And she she is quite memorable in this. She's she doesn't do a whole lot. She cries, and but the way she moves, very mysterious. And I think my friend in college, he was kind of enamored with her as a musician, so that might have
Right.
influenced his love for this movie as well. But yeah, but she never did another movie after this. She's and actually Sarah Patterson, she only did 3 movies after this one. She did a retelling of Snow White about 3 years later, and then a couple of movies in the 2000s. But she's I don't know,
Hmm.
why, but she's was an incredible actress in this. I'm kind of interested in sort of seeing Snow White. I was kind of looking
Would
through the credits, and
be
some of the
curious.
actors from Time Bandits play the dwarves in Snow White,
That's
and
cool.
also Diana Riggs from the Avengers uh, is in it as well as the evil queen. So I absolutely love Diana Riggs, but that's a story for another time. But, but yeah, it's a great movie. And you mentioned the sort of wax floor. Yeah, the original ending to the movie. Spoiler alert.
Hmm.
Spoiler alert. Um, there's a scene at the end. It ends now with the girl waking up with all these wolves around her room, and she screams, which is kind of antithetical, but to the story, because it's sort of like a story of her kind of coming into her own power, and for her to end up just screaming at the end kind of reduces the story. And Neil Jordan has said that he's was kind of unsatisfied with that. It
Mm.
probably would have played a little bit better if she didn't have screamed. It kind of accepted the wolves coming in, to kind of reinforce her power. But the original ending that Angela Carter wrote was that she kind of jumps up on her bed, kind of bounces, and then she takes a dive into the floor, and the floor is like water, and she kind of disappears in the floor, and it kind of ripples, and then that's
Huh.
the end of the movie. Which is sort of a kind of also dreamlike, and sort of just kind of reinforces her power over herself and her world. But yeah, it's
Discovering
one
her
of
that she has a
fun.
choice and she has a path. She can go, or she can stay
Mhm.
here, or she can go. Oh, go there.
Absolutely, yep. And Neil Jordan just couldn't figure out how to make that work.
Mm.
Of course, it'd be easy now with CGI, but yeah, at the time, it just couldn't. He just couldn't wrap his head around getting that to work, especially probably with their budget that they had as well. But yeah, that would have been yeah. That's the only thing that kind of mars this movie is the ending, although it does work in a sense. So and then
I think.
in fact, Angela Carter was very unhappy with the ending at the
Mm.
when it first came out, but they said that later on she kind of grew to love it.
So, yeah. Well, you sometimes you got to become a wolf to survive in the forest.
Mhm,
And Carter and in Carter and Jordan's hands, that transformation, just in a way, it did become not just survival but its own triumph a little bit, like a little
mhm,
buttoned up, kind of. I could see like where they wanted to do more, and it could have been a lot more
mhm.
impactful. But is it going to lift it from, let's say you gave it a 5.5 rating? Is it going to lift it up to a 6.5 rating? I don't know. Maybe, I don't know, but so did this have a pretty good following? And you're obviously like later on, like it was very impactful, not just to actors, but to creators as well.
Well, we'll definitely find out. It seems like those '80s movies that are kind of like hidden gems, like Flesh
Yeah.
and Blood. I forget some of the other ones that we covered here. We were thinking, well, how well is this '80s movie that no one's heard of is going to do on our channel? And a lot of times
We're
those perform better
surprised.
than our other ones. So I wouldn't be surprised if this does quite well for us. Yeah, back in the day, obviously we didn't have the internet, so there wasn't a whole congregation of people talking about these things. But yeah, I believe there's a fan base out there for this. But yeah, if you've come to our channel because of this movie, drop us a comment down below and let us know when you became aware of this movie. Is this
Absolutely.
your favorite from the '80s? But yeah, also give us a thumbs up and a follow, subscribe to the channel, and but yeah, the guy that plays the wolf at the end, the huntsman that turns into the wolf at the end of the movie, he was also a dancer. And you can kind of tell with his movements. He has a very kind of wolfish, kind of graceful kind of movement to him. You can see why the Rosalind character was kind of charmed, even though she knew the danger, because he has the full eyebrow, the
Oh, right,
unibrow.
right.
But she was still charmed with the how he acts, even after he killed old Granny. It was Neil Jordan's idea to when he knocks off her head, that it becomes kind of a doll's
Okay.
head, and kind of breaks, which is kind of is, they weren't scared of gore in this movie, obviously, with Stephen Ray's transformation, but I think it was wise to do it like that so that Granny's death didn't have as big an impact, so that you could kind of get over that, as Rosalind gets over it quite quickly, and gets on with the story between her and the wolf.
Well,
A Granny's grisly death would have kind of interfered with what
the
they had intended for later
right.
on after
Yeah,
that.
I could see where that would be, but well, it's definitely Carter's Manifesto. It's bloody. It's baldy. It's a rewrite of fairy tale fatalism.
Yeah.
Well, you can stream it on YouTube or Shudder or whatever, but you might want to keep a silver bullet handy for the patriarchy.
There you go.
That's my terrible dad joke for the day. Yeah.
But and I would recommend Canopy. That's the library service that they have out there. If you have a library card, you can sign up for Canopy, and they have a wonderful selection of movies. I watched a weird little French vampire movie called The Vertilac on there last week. It's a fun little channel. They have a lot of A24,
Okay.
a lot of art house stuff on Canopy. So yeah, if you're looking for a place to watch it, you can't go wrong with Canopy. But yeah, like you said, I think what was it, Plex and a lot of other places have it. But yeah, where do you watch it? Was it YouTube?
Yeah, I was like, where am I gonna? And then I was gonna go to Plex or Tubi, or one of them, one of the free ones that I know I have an account for, and I can just click a few buttons. But this, I was like already there on YouTube, and I was like, okay, like I'll take it. I also have YouTube TV, so I don't know if I'm getting it because of that, or if any premium or poor schlub normie can get. I would imagine if it's free for me, it would be free for everyone else. But I don't know because of the account thing. Who knows? But yeah, it's out there. It's cool. I could see where I might pick this up later on. I'm not quite there over the line, but I'm not too far. Like I probably will be after we watch. After we come back here next week and do this again. And with that being said. Did you want to do some walk me outs, or was there anything else we didn't cover or hit on?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, I know we usually try, if there's a holiday, we try to maybe cater to that. I Valentine's Day kind of crept up on me, and I didn't realize it. So we might have would have done maybe sort of a romantic horror movie or something of that nature, or something like that. We'll try to plan better for next year. But yeah, this is sort of like it could be a Valentine. I mean, it's a woman or a girl coming into her womanhood, with the dangers of men around her. So
right.
Yeah, it is. But yeah, like I said, yeah, if we're very interested in the female perspective on this. Unfortunately, we didn't have a female co-host. We might have been able to rope one in if we had kind of planned on it. But yeah, if you let us know down in the comments your perspective. This is our channel, the First to Last the Nerdom. Again, we have all sorts of goodies to kind of dig through. We've been doing this for nigh 3 years, and there's quite a bit of a back catalog of our stuff. If you go back too far, you'll start seeing how how far we've grown. We've gone through some changes. I think we're getting up to speed here, right?
I think what we'll end up doing is maybe probably taking a month or two, maybe, and then maybe revisiting older ones, and then redoing them with justice and better quality, to kind of remaster it, so to speak. But with our more, that would be just great to kind of rewatch some of those. I know there's a couple I know you for sure would want to, but yeah. And I think you are also heading up. You are our director of social media and all things, especially the Reddit, where you can find Tom at FirstLastNerdom.
Yep.
And where else are you at?
Causing a ruckus on different subreddits.
Well, at least they didn't delete you off of the A24 subreddit this time, at least. So
that's they were nice and let us. I do look at on the side there, they had the little rules. And so I've gotten to where I look at those, and if they say, hey, no self promotion or whatever, I tend to avoid it. So
Yeah.
24 didn't have that, so I promoted it there, and sure enough, it stuck. I did find a Heretic one as well, one specifically for Heretic, I think. But
Yeah.
but yeah, and that's actually, I didn't mention this on our Heretic thing. So if you're kind of interested in Heretic, that's the subreddit for Heretic is really interesting. There was a lot of different takes on the ending of that movie, because that movie ends kind of ambiguously, and there's a lot of different interesting takes, and it sort of kind of aligns with uh various people's kind of feelings and thoughts on religion,
That's funny.
kind of affects how they
Huh.
interpret the ending of that movie, and it's really fascinating. So yeah, if you're into Heretic, yeah, check out the one of the subreddits on in one of the discussions on the ending of the movie. Might be worth checking out. Just a kind of side thing there. Also, I'm on X. Again, I promote her stuff there, unless Mike beats me to it, and I'll retweet him as well.
Yeah.
But yeah,
y-
we've got and also anything in the Nerdom universe that I find interesting, I'll post there. I'll try to post more. Especially since Mike gifted me a little blue check mark on there. I probably should kind of do more on there to try to get things going.
all good. All
But
good. All good. Yeah. Well, that the thing it waxes and wanes, right? So we're not always hitting up the theater all the time. So it is fun for a limited time, I guess. But yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say I too am also on X there. If you want to have a longer form conversation, might do something with Discord. We'll see. I don't know. Probably not. But we don't really have the numbers for that yet. Probably got to go above a couple thousand, if not more, if not quite a bit more, before you can have like an active kind of community thing going on. But we'll do the best we can. You can also find me at ApeIt.Ink. It might ApeIt_Ink there, but that's longer form content, some kind of things that don't fit in our basket that is Nerdom that I like to take a shot at or recommend or whatever, or the various comings and goings of cool things you find on the interwebs. But I was going to say, I'll pull us back here to that. If you want to give a shout out to that physical media, and show us that beautiful cover, slipcover again. Oh yeah, awesome.
Oh yeah. Let's
Perfect.
get a closer. You gotta figure out. Yeah, you got a little gray in there in the corner there, and
Pretty
the
cool.
various little girl
That makes me want to buy
in the bed.
it. Really, I
Yeah.
just made you do that so that I can see that I'm confirming with after we get
Yeah.
off this call, I will be getting that.
Yep. Yep. You get the Blu-ray and the 4K. Now
Awesome.
one of the things about these 4Ks, obviously they want to make the 4K the best of quality, so they usually just put the movie on the 4K, and then on the Blu-ray, if they have any like extras
Oh, okay.
outside the commentary, they throw it on the Blu-ray. So you can't just keep your 4K and give the Blu-ray to a friend. You'll be missing out on your extras.
Right.
So yeah.
Right on.
But yeah,
All
it's
right.
and this channel has kind of really got me into commentaries. I used to like kind of skip over those, but
Right.
yeah, it's really kind of helps you kind of get a history of things and really kind of dig a little bit deeper into a movie. Yeah, it just kind of makes you appreciate things. Although I will say, with the with the Neil Jordan's commentary, it was a little bit kind of harder to understand him, because he's got that kind of Irish brogue going.
Ah,
So
right on.
so it was, and he kind of mumbles a little bit. So yeah, there's times where I was listening but not really understanding. I was
Yeah.
enjoying it, hearing him talk, but not
Right.
really understanding what he was saying. was enjoyable, but yeah, it was. But yeah, definitely. Yeah, if you got some physical media and haven't really tried out those commentaries, yeah, just kind of give those a whirl, or just watch us, and I'll find all the cool stuff on the commentary and spout it out like it's from me.
Well, you do
Yeah.
it justice, Tom, and no, I try my best too. But yeah, I love it. I love the physical media. We will be back next week. And I lost my train of thought. I should have wrote it
I
down.
was gonna say, I'm highly anticipating my box set from Umbrella of Terrifier. It's in America. It's been shipped. It's in customs in Los Angeles. So
Right,
hopefully I'll be getting those soon.
right on. I've been Mike.
And I'm done. See ya
Push the button. We'll see you next week. Maybe.
later.
Yeah. No, we'll
Laters.
be back. Yeah. Yeah.